All right, well, tonight's guest has done pretty much every freaking thing on earth that I can imagine that is also awesome. He was the editor-in-chief of PC Gamer magazine. You wrote the screenplay for Book of Eli, The Book of Eli, rather. You've done, oh, geez, you've been a podcaster for years and years, almost as a podcasting pioneer, if you will. Yes, so thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Gary Whitta.
I'm now quite intimidated by myself.
You're sitting there thinking like, man, I am a badass.
It's like, yeah, this is not going to be good for my ego at all.
Also our first in-studio guest, which is very exciting.
That's right. I'm very happy to help you break this setting. This is very cool. It's like like a real talk show. I love it.
Right so on. Tell us. This is how we talk on real
Who's
talk
the musical
shows.
Guest?
Oh, that's going to happen later. We have one planned for a few episodes from now, so maybe you can come back.
I'll look forward to it.
So you've made some pretty exciting announcements in recent weeks. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, not so much me directly, but Telltale Games, which is developing the video game version of The Walking Dead. It's been known that they're doing a game version for quite some time, but just recently, a couple of weeks ago, they finally kind of took the wraps off it for the first time and released a bunch of screens and a bunch of information about how they're approaching the game. And one of the things that they announced is that I'm working with them, helping them on the story side of the game, which is really all of it, because it's a very story-driven game. So that's pretty exciting. I'm the story consultant on the game across all 5 episodes, and writing one of the episodes as well. So it's pretty cool.
And so how closely are they going to follow the storyline of the TV show?
Of the TV show, not at all, because it's actually not related to the TV show at all. Everything, of course, stems from the comics, which is the original version of The Walking Dead. So AMC licensed the comics to go make a TV show, and now Telltale came along and they licensed the comics to go make a video game. And so the game is based on the comics. It has no association with the TV show at all, and much in the same way that the TV show has kind of taken the original story and kind of started to deviate and put their own spin on it, what Telltale's doing is actually even more of a radical departure than that, because they're not following the story of the comics at all. There's no Rick.
Oh, wow.
There's no. They're basically, it's set in the same universe. It's canon. It's the same timeline, but it's another group of survivors. It's another set of central characters that just happen to be trying to survive in the same universe as Rick and Shane and all those other guys. There's a little bit of crossover. Glenn is in the first episode of the game. Herschel's farm shows up at some point in the game. So the characters do kind of overlap and intersect, and you'll see some of the DNA of the original comics is definitely in there, but it's very much its own original story.
From a storytelling perspective, is that like a breath of fresh air to have this blank canvas in a world that you're already familiar with and the type of situations that you know you're going to deal with, but you can go whatever direction you want?
Yeah, in a way, it's exactly what you said, because I think, that, for example, the guys that are doing the TV show, they've taken the choice to kind of adapt the comics somewhat literally, but their challenge is how much can we go off the beaten path here? Are we going to annoy fans of the comic if we do something? That wasn't the way it wasn't in the comics. Whereas what Telltale is doing is to say, we're not doing that story at all. Because how many times can you revisit the same story? It's cool to see a TV version of the comic book story, but if you're going to go there again to that universe, let's see a whole other side of that world. Obviously, there are all kinds of other groups trying to survive that situation, and so we have a whole original new set of characters that we've created just for that new story.
I would imagine that also gives you the advantage of being able to call back the exact same people who are fans of the comic books and fans of the television show, to where they're not going to be hearing the same story again, but something entirely new.
Yeah, and it broadens the universe. I mean, all the rules are the same. You know, the lore, the mythology is the same. It's set in and around Atlanta. It's the same time and place in that fictional universe. And like I said, there are a couple of characters and there are a couple of little Easter eggs where you go, oh, that was in the comics. But for the most part, like, so our lead character, for example, is a guy called Lee, who is a convicted murderer, and he's actually on his way to jail when the apocalypse happens, and as a result, he gets free. And that he's a very different story. I think they deliberately chose to make that character on the opposite side of the law from Rick. Rick's a cop, right? So Lee is a guy on the other side of the law, and so they said, what can we do that is completely the opposite side of the story you've seen already? And like you said, we're treating it very much as an original story, still very faithful to the lore and the mythology that Robert Kirkman created. We ask ourselves all the time, like, would Robert approve of that? Is that consistent tonally with the universe? Does it feel like it feels like it belongs in the Walking Dead world that's been established, but we don't have to worry about existing storylines or characters because they're all original?
Was there any kind of collaboration between you and the writers of the comic as well?
So Robert's very closely involved. You know, he signs off on everything. I think he visited Telltale recently to kind of look at the game and seems to be very happy with what we're doing. And you know, when I first sat down with the Telltale guys, you know, we kind of decided that we had two ambitions. One was for Robert and the guys that work on the TV show to look at what we did and go, oh, we should have thought of that. Why did we do that? That's so cool.
Rubbing in a little.
And also to go, oh man, can they do that? That is disgusting. Because we really kind of, I think more than the comics, even more than the TV show, I think there's some stuff in there that is really going to turn your stomach, both in terms of the zombie gore and also in terms of the agonizing decisions that some of the characters are going to have to make. Because you remember, it's a game now. You're not watching someone else making that decision.
Wow.
You are the player who has to make that agonizing decision. And there are no easy choices in the Walking Dead universe. I mean, they're all really horrible choices.
That is horrific,
Yeah.
because you're right. I mean, I read the comic book and I'm just twisting looking at the decisions they have to make. I don't want to be the guy who has to make those decisions.
Yeah, for me as a writer, it's actually really satisfying. I think it's one of the benefits of working in the interactive medium. As a writer, when I write a movie or a TV show, it's fun to take fictional characters that you create and torture them and put them in horrible, agonizing situations. When you do a video game story, that's real people that you're torturing. You're putting them in those situations.
So does that make it better or worse?
It's more fun for me, which is all I care about.
So now that you're in the trenches with this all the time, I'm sure, why do you think zombies make such compelling storytelling devices these days? Why is it such a trend right now?
An
I mean,
enduring trend, too.
Yeah.
I think end-of-the-world stories have always been popular. I mean, I obviously kind of made my little contribution to that with the Book of Eli, and this is a different kind of end-of-the-world. Zombies in particular have been, like I said, just like vampires. Every kind of genre trend has its day in the sun. Zombies were really popular for a long time, then they went away. No one was interested in zombies. Now they're really back again. To the point at which I kind of feel there's almost a bit of zombie fatigue that's starting to step in. It's like, if it's not zombies, it's unicorns. Like, the internet is filled with these things. But I think that there are a couple of
They're there to balance each other out, the zombies and the unicorns.
I know. Maybe
The
they should
zombie
just fight each
unicorns.
other
Forget about those.
and have a battle royale and decide it once and for all. But I think there's two parts of the zombie kind of mythology that are immune from that. There's a lot of Johnny-come-latelys in the zombie universe these days. Everyone has a zombie story to tell. But the original George A. Romero zombie movies and the Walking Dead universe that Robert created, I think I kind of grandfathered in a long time prior to that. They were doing that stuff before it was really cool. In fact, they made it cool. I think The Walking Dead is one of the reasons why zombie stuff is cool again. So I think The Walking Dead is actually one of the reasons why zombies are so popular right now. So it's for me, it's a real thrill to be able to contribute a little something to that universe.
So, having already been the editor of PC Gamer, do you have an extreme pressure to make sure that this game is good? Do you feel like there's extra scrutiny with the fact that you have a background as a reviewer?
Not just with this game, but with everything I do. It's very weird for me to have been in a situation where I've been on both sides of the fence. For many years, got my paycheck criticizing the work of others. I would sit in my chair at PC Gamer and go, oh, this game is terrible. And it never really occurred to me that there were people that worked really hard on that game, whose feelings I might be hurting really badly. And so when I made a movie and it came out and it got reviews, and it got a lot of very good reviews, it also got a lot of very bad reviews. It was very polarizing. It was kind of a movie that you either love or hate. And to be on the other side of the fence, you finally empathize with people who create content and put it out in the way. You're very vulnerable when you do that, and people. To see a review, someone says this is great, that's very gratifying. But when somebody says it's terrible, yeah, it really stings. And so I'm very aware of that, and I'm sure I'll be very conscious of what people think of with The Walking Dead when it comes out. And the weird thing about The Walking Dead is the way that Telltale make games, they're episodic. They will be continuing to make and develop episodes of the game after the first episode is out. And so they'll be looking at the criticism and how the story is, just like you did with a TV show or a comic book. It's an ongoing story, so you look at how people are reacting to what you've already done, and that may shape what you continue to do in the future.
Speaking of which, how is it different writing for a video game versus a screenplay or a film?
It's a lot more work, I've noticed. But, I mean, it really is. And anyone who's played a story-driven game, you don't have to work in the business to appreciate this. You watch a movie, it's 2 hours long. It's usually one page is a minute of screen time, so a 2-hour movie is a 120-page script. That's what you write. That has its own challenges, but it's one linear story that you tell from beginning to end. When you write a video game, they sent me the first episode of the Walking Dead scripts to look at. It was 500 pages long.
Holy
because
cow.
It's not just one story. It's every single branch of the story that you can go down, every single choice, every decision that you make has to be played out in dialogue and in various scenarios. And so it's much more meticulous. All the moving parts have to kind of interlock, and just by volume, you're writing a lot more stuff. So I actually think it's a lot more difficult.
Now, something we were talking about a little bit before this show, I know that Walking Dead has a counterpart, which is The Talking Dead, and now the game is going to have another counterpart called Playing
Dead.
Playing
Yes.
Dead, of course.
It's actually pretty cool. So what Telltale is doing is they're kind of taking a little bit of a cue from AMC. So AMC now, once you watch an episode of The Walking Dead, they have Talking Dead with, is it Chris
Hardwick.
Chris Hardwick,
yeah.
right? The Nerdist, who comes on and hosts the show and they talk about the episode. So what Telltale did is kind of took that format, but they're using it a little bit differently. They created a series called Playing Dead, and if you go to telltalegames.com, you can. The first episode is already up, and it's the same thing. It's kind of a talk show format, just like this. They have a host, and they have the developers of the game come in and talk about what players can expect from the game. So the first episode is up right now on their site. I'm in the second episode, which I think debuts tomorrow on Monday. So you'll be able to go to telltalegames.com and see that, and we talk about what our ambitions are, how we tell the story of the game. And I think the episode is me and Sean Vanneman, who's one of the developers of the game, and also one of the guys, if you remember the Idle Thumbs podcast, he's one of those guys. And I think Idle Thumbs is actually coming back as well. They did a Kickstarter and they're bringing that podcast back, which is very cool. So it's funny how all these different worlds intersect, but if you want to know a lot more, I mean, like a lot more about what the Walking Dead game is going to be, you can go to Telltale's website and check out those YouTube videos. Robert Kirkman himself is in the episode after me talking about how he's contributing to the game as well, so that's pretty cool.
So can you spill the beans on anything else you're working on? I know you're doing something with M. Night Shyamalan now?
Yes, there's very little I can tell you about it other than what is already in the public domain. It's called After Earth. I worked on it as a screenwriter. M. Night Shyamalan is directing it. Will Smith and his son Jaden are in it. They're the stars. And it's shooting right now. They just got done in Costa Rica, and they've got a few more months to go, and it's coming out, I think, June next year. It's a big summer movie, so that's very exciting. And do not ask me anything else because I am not allowed to say anything other than that.
maybe after we give you a couple of beers
already,
later.
so, yeah.
He's already said too much, ladies and gentlemen. So where can people follow you online?
At Gary Whitta. I think it's up on the screen somewhere because my name is spelled weirdly, but if you see it on the screen right there, there it is. And I'm all over the internet. If you do a Google search for me, the weird thing when you have a name that there's, it's like if you're John Smith, it can be hard to hunt people down on the internet. But if you Google me, like it's right there. I can't escape.
GARYWHITTA for the audio listeners.
I cannot escape my online footprint. I'm on Google Plus and
yeah,
Facebook
you
and
are.
all those.
Google
But
Plus.
Twitter is like my main thing where I kind of tell people, there you go, look, there's a bunch of Twitter,
You let me know
things.
that you surpassed me on Google Plus
Well, I think
today.
you and I may actually have a little bit of a rivalry going on.
A little rivalry
So when
going
you join Google, if you sign up for Google Plus, God knows why you would, but if you would, if you did,
I like the Google Plus.
Veronica and I are actually there as like people you may be interested in following from different areas of tech and whatever, and she and I both have almost exactly the same number of followers right now. So this, because I'm a very petty individual, this has become a point of pride with me that I must have more followers than Veronica.
I certainly don't know what you're talking about.
Because she's obliterating me on Twitter. I mean, it's not even close. So Google Plus is like where I have to make my stand.
I most certainly don't go to circlecount.com every day to look at my standing.
Oh, geez, you guys, I didn't even know this until this is one of those times where I was actually like, oh, I have a lot of followers on this thing. Oh, okay, where did this happen?
No, I've got it bad.
That's bad.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here in studio today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very cool.
We would love to have you back on again sometime,
Anytime.
especially when the game comes out.
Absolutely.
Walk
Yeah,
us
let's
through
come
it.
back and talk about it. Absolutely.
All right.